a man who actually got his own personal shout out from Jim Schlossnagle at the introductory press conference yesterday. A guy who was here in Austin who works for Texags and Texags Radio, one of the best in the business. Olin Buchanan is joining us this morning from College Station. Olin, thanks for the time, man. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me. I'm always excited to be on a show with Bucky Godbolt.
Olin, thank you so much, man, for your time. And I know it has got to be something going on down in College Station right now that people aren't very happy about. I mean, I followed Texas A&M baseball throughout this College World Series, and you know, for them to rise the way they have, and for the players, and to lose an incredible player early in these games, and to still be there for the finals and do what they did despite losing a coach, had to be something special for the people and the athletic department there.
Oh, it was great. It was a memorable season. It was fun. Atmosphere at the games was electric and festive, you know, all the way through. And you know what? Jim Schlossnagle is a big reason for that. And at least for that much, I think Aggies can be thankful for that. But, you know, history doesn't look kindly on Judas. And
yeah, not really.
And I kind of think that's the way the legacy of Jim Schlossnagle is going to be in College Station for the rest of time. I think, you know, we were talking about the batting order of Texas A&M villains, and you know, guys like that Aggies really didn't like Ken Starr up at Baylor, and Lost Dodds and Lane Kiffin, and there's even some old football coaches here. But I got to tell you, I think from in perpetuity, Jim Schlossnagle is going to be batting leadoff.
Yeah, that move. Yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah. Olin, you know, we might have different definitions of fun, but I'm going to ask how much fun it's been to host a radio show for Texags over the last couple of days. Because sounds like you guys have been having fun with the story, and I'm sure the calls and the texts that y'all have been getting have been crazy. You've been on the beat for a long time. Have you experienced anything like this in your career?
Well, I mean, this is different because how often does a coach leave for your rival? Never. Think about this. LSU fans to this day have this disdain for Nick Saban because he left LSU and went to Alabama, and he had a stop in Miami for 2 years before.
Right.
So I mean, I'm sure it's happened. I can't tell you a head coach that ever left Auburn for Alabama or vice versa, or one that left Clemson. And Bucky, I got to tell you, I don't know who the arch rival is of Boston College. Maybe Syracuse. You know, how would that play if you know you had almost won a championship at Boston College and left for Syracuse? You know, so that's never going to play. That said, unfortunately, in recent years, A&M's been kind of a breeding ground for drama. You know, we had Jimbo Fisher going off on Nick Saban about the recruiting thing, and so and then the whole football coach hiring last year, where it looked like it was going to be Mark Stoops, and then it wasn't. You know, so we're kind of used to you know, some unusual stories, but this one might have taken the cake.
You know, Olin, I know with the drama that's going on, I got to believe Aggie fans are not excited about. I mean, they're okay now that they have their athletic director. I mean, he's not leaving tomorrow or whatever, but they can't be happy with the loss of a baseball coach, because I don't know how much they liked him anyway, even before this. But I've got to believe there's got to be a section of Aggie folks that aren't very happy with Trev Albert. I mean, I just can't imagine.
Well, there are, but I think the level-headed people know that it's probably nothing Trev could have done.
No.
Right?
No.
Because they were going to offer it. I think there was they said, hey, we're trying to schedule a meeting with Jim to offer him, you know, $3 million. And Jim didn't set up didn't set up or agree to the meeting, or said, you know, couldn't make it. And and that was because you know, he already had a deal with Chris Del Conte. Now, the question is, when did they have that deal?
Yeah, I've got to believe that didn't happen at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's so it's when I heard that Chris Del Conte was saying, we didn't have a deal, and I was waiting in a cemetery in Snook to go talk to him. I was like, yeah, that cemetery is where truth goes to die.
Yeah. I've heard of these stories before. I mean, that didn't just happen so that you have a press conference at 4:00 in the afternoon, that you made your decision at 2:00. It just didn't seem right. I was, I don't know Coach Schlossnagle. I didn't like the way that went down with the reporter. I thought I didn't think it was, I've heard coaches after games, very emotional, and somebody asked them the wrong question, which is really the question that we all want to be answered. Just somebody had the balls to do it, and this young guy did it. And just the response was, it happens. People respond in different ways like that. I mean, I thought, I'm not even going to say the true character of Coach Schlossnagle, because you know him and you know what his character is.
I thought I knew him.
Yeah, okay. Well, even that part of it. But it just, that response was one of those responses that happens to people. We're all human. You make a response like that. Now, yesterday, when it was all said and done, and he became the new coach at Texas, he apologized to that young person right away. I hope Olin somehow, some way, individually, he got on the phone and called him up to apologize, and not just did that at the press conference. I hope there was more than just what we saw yesterday. I hope that he did that and said, I'm going to get on the horn, I'm going to try my best to get to this young guy and apologize to him individually before he threw it out to the whole world. So how it would make him, and it wasn't that it would make him look good. It was just the right thing to do. He just had to do that no matter what.
Yeah. To talk to Richard, that has not happened.
It has not?
No. Now Richard will say he's a good kid, young guy, really conscientious. He would say that the apology was appreciated,
yes,
but not necessary. But the fact of the matter is, he asked a very pertinent question.
Sure.
And when you sign up for all the fame and fortune that comes with being leading a major athletic program,
correct,
part of that means that you're going to have to take some tough questions sometimes.
Absolutely.
And Schlossnagle's response was absolutely, to use a baseball term, bush league. And I got to tell you, he makes the apology, but then immediately starts quantifying. Well, it was after the game and this happened. Yeah, we get all that. The fact is, he asked the question that was pertinent, and in a matter of hours, you Jim Schlossnagle, proved that question was valid. And we're hearing stories, and like you said, you believe it, that this was done long before. This decision was made long before that game was played.
Sure.
And so I wonder if the motivation, and I hope the motivation to make that apology, I hope comes from a good place.
Oh, I think it does. That's why I said, I think I asked you the question about how you know him. You said you thought you knew him, but I know there's things that happen in people's lives that change. They change by the day. They change by the situation. But for you knowing him from TCU and Texas A&M, that's a good dude. That was a good dude from what you knew, right?
Yes, I generally like him, and I don't hate him now.
Right.
But what was the motivation for that apology? Was it because you really, truly felt bad about it, but you didn't call Richard? Or was it because, hey, I've seen the national pushback on that, how from ESPN to national columnists and people everywhere, Twitter, social media, everybody is just absolutely ripping you for the way you handled that. And is there a certain amount of damage control and save face involved? Is that the motivation? I
want to look at it as he looked himself in the mirror and said, that was a dumb thing I did. I need to apologize to this guy. I don't need any pressure from anybody or anything in this nation to make me do that. Just from looking at myself, I've got to believe that I've got to give this guy an apology. That's why I asked
I hope so.
Part about giving him a call. Did he? And you said no. But I think there was, when I listened to him, I think there was a sincere apology being put out there. And I said, well, Aggies don't give a rat's ass about that apology right now. They could care less about the apology. But for me, from a personal standpoint, as a person looking at yourself saying, I've got to do this. I don't need the pressure of anything, but I know, you've seen coaches react after games. You've seen how they react, and some react even worse than that. I mean, we saw the meltdown at Oklahoma State of a head coach. That's what we've gotten used to seeing. Just that little deal. But to berate a reporter for asking a question that 90% of everybody in the room really would have liked to have answered, I just thought, I still think his apology was a pretty good apology. I'm just surprised he hadn't called him.
Yeah, again, I hope that's the motivation. I know this. First of all, Jim's always been good to me and been good to all of us at Texas. He has. He's a brilliant baseball coach, and Texas got a brilliant baseball coach. There's no doubt about that. Jim and Richard had what I think was not just a good, but an excellent working relationship. I don't want to call it a friendship because reporters and coaches never should be friends.
Sure.
But I think they had a friendly relationship. In fact, Richard's nickname has always been Big Shooter, and he got that nickname from Coach Schlossnagle, who called it one day. He asked him a question. He goes, "Now, hold on there, Big Shooter." So, and that was in the first year. And so ever since then, Richard was always called Big Shooter. Now, we may start calling him Selfish Shooter, but they always had this relationship. Now, what you don't know, or maybe you don't know, is after you saw the Monday night press conference when he went off on Richard and then said, write that, and he left the podium.
Yeah, yes.
After he left the podium, he went straight up to Richard and said, "I will never talk to you again."
Yeah, I mean, that's still the part. That was still, there's no doubt about that still being the heat of the moment. Once again, we've seen coaches, we've seen players do it, and still at that point, it's still in the heat of the moment. Like I said, you got to get to your house. You got to sit down with yourself. Not, you don't need anybody calling you up and say, "Hey, coach, you need to change. You need to change the narrative of what just happened," because you can't really change the narrative. You did it. You said it. You're a grown man. But when you sit down in your own mind, you look at yourself in the mirror, you get ready to do a shave and say, "That was wrong. Yeah. I've got to make it up." I don't need anybody to pressure me to make the apology. I don't think Coach did that. I have a feeling that I give him the benefit of the doubt that he did everything that I'm thinking about of looking himself over and he didn't need Chris Del Conte. He didn't need the rest of the nation to make that kind of apology.
I would hope that's true.
Yeah.
And you know what? And it may be, but to your earlier point, had he called Richard,
yes,
I think I would have been even more convinced. I think that would have convinced me without any secondary suspicion.
Yeah. All right. Buck, let me reset here. Olin Buchanan from Texas, nice enough to join us this morning. Really appreciate your time, Olin. He was at the press conference yesterday here in Austin. Olin, back to just this whole move in general. I mean, did you or anyone at Texas catch wind that this could be a possibility before it went down? And did you believe that the rumors could have been true, that he actually could have been considering leaving A&M despite playing for a national championship to go to Texas?
Well, I think Bucky remembers I used to cover the Longhorns for the Statesman for a couple of years. I lived in Austin and worked for the Statesman for almost 12 years. So, I understand how things go. And look, I admire Texas in that you want something, they go for it.
Yes.
Okay? And just like A&M, they want something, they go for it. Okay. We had heard this rumors coming out of Austin that they were going to get Schlossnagle like 2 months ago. Well, the first thing is that's Texas being Texas. Yeah. A&M's got something going. Let's see if we can't throw a wrench into it.
Sure.
But it never went away. So then you start asking, and there's private conversations with people I know with Schlossnagle. And he said, "No, it's all talk. Don't worry. I'm here. Don't worry about it. That's all talk." Okay. So, okay, that's good. But they still don't go away. And then you get closer to the playoffs and they start ramping up and say, "Hey, coach, look, I'm just focused on the game. Look, I've told you the situation with me here. I'm just focused on trying to get to the College World Series." And then all of a sudden, guys that he would talk to all the time tell me he was getting harder to reach. Okay. So then you start thinking, we've all been in this business long enough to know the longer the story plays out,
Sure.
more likely there's something to it. And so it's been going on for 2 months, and or at least since May, and it's still there. And you're thinking, well, when is he going to come up? It's one thing to say something in private conversation. It's another thing to come out publicly and say, this absolutely is not going to happen. But then you say, hey, I'm only focused on trying to win a championship. So I don't want to be, okay, so we can all get that. So, it keeps on, and you're still wondering. And then, again, his own words, when Richard asked him, I came to Texas A&M for it to be my last job. My mind has not changed from that. What does that tell you when you hear that?
Oh, no. Yeah.
So but then, and so I think, again, that's where the vitriol for Schloss comes from Aggies, is because not only did you leave for the arch rival, but you lied about it. We believe it's been going on. He said, hey, Chris Del Conte and I, we're friends. We talked for months.
Sure.
But we never talked about the job. I'm sorry, I got to wave the BS flag at that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the vitriol of this whole thing, where they, you knew you were getting rid of Dave Pierce. He was gone. Coach Pierce was gone. I mean, but to do it on that Monday, I'm like, you knew that time. You knew that way back. It wasn't like he was going to be, we're going to try this guy at Florida. We'll try A&M. We'll try the guy at Tennessee. You knew he was gone. Mm-hmm. And you waited to that Monday, and you waited for the final 2 guys. But you really only wanted one guy, and maybe you really only but you've probably been actually talking to them both. I got a feeling that you can talk to the Tennessee coach and find out that they've been talking to him too.
No problem.
But that's what this is what happens, But that Monday timing of, holding on to David Pierce, although he probably knows he's gone too. By then he knows he's gone. He knew that way before then. And
I asked Del Conte, it wasn't on camera, but I asked Del Conte yesterday if that was calculated, for all that to come out the day A&M plays for a national championship.
Mm-hmm.
And of course he said no. He said, oh, man, it's just people started talking from David's end, and the next thing that's just how information flows. And I'm saying, again, sorry.
Well, it has to be calculated. It's your rival. You want to do things. I mean, of course, it's got to be calculated.
And was Jim Schlossnagle complicit in that? Because Bucky, I would put to you, and I'm not saying he is, but I bet you would know coaches in your background that if they said, hey, I'm going to be interested in a job, but don't get it out before this, especially if I'm about to play for a championship, and it comes out, for a lot of guys, that would be a deal breaker. Look, we agreed
this would not get out. Yes,
you're not going to get this out, and then it came out. I'm done.
Yeah.
But and I'm not claiming that Schlossnagle was complicit in that, and that not only was the announcement that Pierce was fired that day, but then that also ramped up the speculation about Schlossnagle going there. So I'm not saying he was complicit. I'm just saying that it does raise some questions in some people's minds.
And Olin, I just thought that Coach Schlossnagle was very smooth in the way he took that shot at the Aggies athletic department in his press conference. It almost seemed like things weren't. I mean, Texas has got all kind of the BBs in the box right now under CDC. I mean, he's done a great job. There's no doubt about what he has done there since he's come there, with the Director's Cup and things like that, and having the athletic and the alums, the NIL things all set and everything else. But I thought Coach Schlossnagle took a pretty calculated swipe at the Aggies athletic department.
Well, I think it's my understanding. Okay, let me put it that way. It's my understanding, because I wasn't covering the story, but that now Jim was on the search committee for an athletic director. And it's my understanding that he wanted Mike Buddy from Army. And of course, they went with Trev Alberts. And I don't know that Trev's done anything to anger Schlossnagle or if it was, but if you wanted one athletic director and you already got at one place and he did, and the guy you wanted isn't going there, and maybe you felt like, your voice should have been heard more than it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then your longtime friend and former athletic director is there offering you a job. Okay, I can see how that happens.
Yeah, by the way, it's not a bad job.
No, it's amazing. Now, I think A&M would have paid him everything.
There's no doubt, yeah.
That Texas was, except for the 30 pieces of silver, of course. but I got to do that.
Of course.
But just don't lie about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that you're going to talk about it during your run, but when something as simple as saying, when Richard asked that question, to say what most coaches would have said, because I asked, well, I'm not going to get into that, but what most coaches would have found a way to say, look, all I care about right now is those players, and
Sure.
I'm not going to take that question. I understand you have to ask it, but with all respect, I'm just not going to take
He
that
just
question.
didn't do a good job at that part. And I just don't, it was not good.
Just don't lie.
Yeah. Oh, and last thing from me, where does A&M go from here? I mean, they thought they had their coach for the next 10, 15, 20 years, and all of a sudden you go from one run away from a national title to, oh, God, we got to find a new baseball coach.
Yeah.
Who's on the short list, and what are those conversations like?
I don't know who's on the short list. I'd be
Okay.
lying to you if I said I did. But I guarantee you this. Every athletic director has a list of coaches that they're going to contact.
Sure.
And so I would imagine that within hours after the Schlossnagle announcement, they've been on the phone with guys. I guarantee you they will get a well-known, successful coach. Look, A&M has had a successful baseball program even before Schlossnagle got there. Did they feel like he could get them to a championship? Yeah, and he probably could if he stayed. But I guarantee you they will get a coach that can that will be the type of coach that can take all the resources at Texas A&M. They're going to spend $80 million to upgrade the stadium, and is a guy that's going to be able, that has the credentials to suggest that he could that he can continue what should be a wildly successful program. Now, I don't know who it is, and I would have thought maybe the guy at Clemson, but I saw that that's supposedly already off the table. That he, maybe Clemson saw the writing on the wall,
Sure.
and reacted. But they'll get somebody that's going to be a big name, or if not a big name, at least somebody who's been an extremely. Because let's face it, in college baseball, it's not like football. Sometimes even great coaches aren't big names, right? They are among the college baseball community, but I don't think average fans know who a lot of the college baseball fans